Welcome to our Phonetics and Pronunciation presentation. We are going to talk about some issues Spanish-speaking people usually have while learning English. Learning a language is difficult, but learning a proper pronunciation of that language could be a real challenge. Knowing how to pronounce English language for Spanish-speaking people is hard because of various reasons. Some of them are the differences between phonetics of both languages and how some sounds of English vowels and consonants do not even exist in Spanish. For that reason, it is important to understand what those differences are and how to pronounce the sounds the correct way. Language differences: English, Spanish. Spanish is a Romance language that comes from the Italic branch of the Indo-European language family. It is closely related to Italian and Portuguese. Spanish is a major language, with up to 400 million native speakers in Spain, Latin America and the USA, and 537 million people counting non-native speakers. English is also part of the Indo-European language family, but comes from the Germanic branch. English is also a major language with up to 360 million native speakers in the world and 1,268 million people counting non-native speakers. There are 5 vowels in Spanish: A, E, I, O, U, whereas 13 to 14 vowel sounds exist in English, depending on dialect and detail. Let's talk about the alphabet. Spanish uses the Latin alphabet. The vowels can take an acute accent, and there is the additional letter ñ. When spelling English words or writing them from the teacher's dictation, beginning Spanish students may make mistakes with the English vowels A, E, I. The length of the vowel sound plays an important role. It is not surprising, therefore, that Spanish learners may have great difficulty in producing or even perceiving the various English vowel sounds. The consonants H, J, R, Y may also cause trouble since they have significantly different names in Spanish. Let's talk a little bit about phonology. The phonological system of Spanish is significantly different from that of English, particularly in the aspects of vowel sounds and sentence stress. These differences are very serious obstacles to Spanish learners being able to acquire a native English speaker accent. Says European Spanish speakers in particular probably find the English pronunciation harder than speakers of any other European language. Next, we have 2 figures with phonemes comparison side by side. We have voiceless and voiced of both languages, Spanish and English.
There are many differences between English and Spanish pronunciation, but according to Shoebottom, the Spanish speakers don't find problematic to imitate consonant sounds, but they are difficult enough. There are other difficulties that can bring more problems for the Spanish speaker, such as failure to pronounce the end consonant accurately or strongly enough, example card for the English word card, or bridge for bridge, or think for think. Problems with the V in words such as vowel or revive, difficulties in sufficiently distinguishing words such as see with she or jeep with sheep with chip, the tendency to prefix words beginning with a consonant cluster on S with an S sound, so for example school becomes a school and strip becomes a strip, and finally the swallowing of sounds in other consonant clusters, examples next becomes nest and instead becomes instead. Finally, there are some interesting facts about the phonological difficulties. Spanish is a syllable time language. Phonological difficulties rises when you become older, and in recent experiments, early English learners outperform phonologically late learners and, surprisingly, bilinguals.
The IPA stands for International Phonetic Alphabet. It is an alphabet developed in the 19th century to represent the pronunciation of languages. The aim of this alphabet was to provide a unique symbol for each distinctive sounding languages, and the phonemes are used to distinguish one word from another, and the model used from the IPA was a phonetic script created for English in 1847 by Isaac Pitman and Henry Ellis. The IPA primarily used Roman characters. Other letters are borrowed from different scripts and are modified. Diacritics are used for fine distinctions in sounds and to show nasalizations of vowels, lengths, stress, and tones. It did not become the universal system for phonetic transcription that its designers had intended, and it is used less commonly in America than in Europe. In case you're wondering how this alphabet helps to solve the problem of pronunciation and phonetic, that it's simple. Pronunciation English words like hyperbole or plot can give even native speakers trouble. The International Phonetic Alphabet was created as an attempt to help to be able to use these complicated spelling words easily, and it aims to reproduce all existing sounds in language. Also, it is important because letters in English have different phonetic sounds or not sounds at all. Therefore, spelling is not a reliable source for pronunciation.
Continuing on with the presentation, we now have advantages of having a native speaking teacher. Among the first things when talking about language teachers is that if the teacher is a native speaker of the language. This is because of the popular idea and the way that these ideas are promoted. Here are some reasons that back this idea up. The first is that teachers are able to use colloquialisms more appropriately. This is because the teachers have experience using the target language. Native speakers have the target pronunciation, and while they may have their own local accent, they don't have any other foreign accents. This is a common occurrence with non-native speaking teachers. Teachers also possess relevant English cultural connotations and have the capacity to tell which English sentences are acceptable and which are not. So when students make grammar mistakes and pronunciation mistakes, the teacher can correct them. And naturally, native speakers have received more language input than non-native speakers, and therefore have stronger language skills because of socialization. Another reason is the experience that the teacher has had can also be used to describe certain situations, like making plans or having small talk. This can help the students understand the context of what they're speaking about. So, in some ways, it is better to learn from a native speaking teacher because native speakers have some advantages that non-native speakers don't have. However, in the end, it is mostly up to the preference of the students whether or not they want to have a native or a non-native speaking teacher. This is because even though non-native speaking teachers don't have the same advantages, they have other advantages that make them as equally competent as any other teacher.
Some students find understanding English spoken is so difficult. English has many variations in its pronunciation. People have different accents according to where they were born. but in language teaching there are two types of English that the teachers and institution teach. The first one is receiving pronunciation. For some people this is known as the correct English, and the second one is standard American English, that is the accent most spoken around the USA. Apparently, English is unique and doesn't have difference when a person speaks, but the British and American pronunciation sometimes are different. The great difference is in the IPA vowels, and each British and American speaking pronounce the same word in a different way. For example, we have honest for British and honest for American, class for British and class for Americans, author for British and author for Americans, student for British and student for American, dance for British and dance for American, and phenomenon for British and phenomenon for American. Receiving pronunciation has always been seen as an English with more status, but actually it is not. There are no functional characteristics that make one English better than another. So, when a student is learning, it doesn't matter what kind of English he is receiving. In linguistic terms, if one is able to understand one type of English, it might be able to do it for the same language even if the pronunciation is different.